Hello, my name is Heather Ackermann, and this is my oral presentation for our Police Community Relations class at York Technical College. This oral presentation is on police strategies to address complaints of excessive use of force. To me, the use of excessive force is not a relatively new problem that police departments are facing. I think that throughout history, during times of strife and conflict, that we see these complaints rise more than other times. If you look back in history at the Prohibition era in the 20s and 30s, the Civil Rights era of the 50s and 60s, and then the War on Drugs era in the 80s, you will see that all these times had excessive use of force complaints prominent in their history. The situation that I think brought to light excessive force for me and a lot of the country was in 1991 when Rodney King was seen speeding on a highway in Los Angeles, California. A high-speed chase ensued, and after the chase was over, Mr. King and his two passengers were removed from the vehicle. What happened immediately after that is up to speculation. Each side kind of has a different version of the story. What we do know is what eventually was recorded by a bystander, and that is that Mr. King was observed being essentially attacked by several police officers, and in the end suffered at least 33 blows from either closed fists, hands, or batons, and at least 6 kicks. 4 Los Angeles Police Department police officers were eventually charged with excessive force, and they were later acquitted in 1992 on those charges, which left the community very angry and then led to the LA riots in 1992, which went on for 5 days and caused $1 billion in damages to the city of Los Angeles, along with leaving 54 people dead. So we can see that this is not a new issue, but if we fast forward ahead to situations that have gone on in Ferguson, Missouri, and Baltimore, Maryland, and New York City, and Cleveland, Ohio, you see that once again, in a time of conflict, these excessive force complaints are on the rise. So what can police departments do to address this issue of excessive force? We're going to start by looking at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department in Las Vegas, Nevada. In 2012, the American Civil Liberties Union, also known as the ACLU, submitted a petition to the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate and evaluate the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and their reporting procedures of post-use of force incidents. The ACLU partnered with other departments in Los Angeles, Seattle, and New Orleans, to name a few. And what they found was that directives were very unclear on what exactly excessive force is, when to report it, and many of these situations ended up going unreported, and the procedures in dealing with this were extremely inconsistent. Many times officers were not reprimanded or held accountable, essentially because nobody knew that any of these were going on because the directives were so unclear as to what needed to be reported. So what also came from that is some changes in handcuffing techniques, takedown techniques, baton use, OC spray use, pat downs, and changes to the framework of what excessive force technically is, what deadly force technically is, and the process that should follow those situations. Next, we'll look at Cleveland, Ohio. The U.S. District Attorney and the U.S. Department of Justice reported that the use of force by the Cleveland Police Department was showing a clear pattern of violating the constitutional rights of the citizens of Cleveland, Ohio. This comes after 600 use of force complaints were filed between 2012 and 2013. Governor John Kasich, who is now a presidential nominee, announced that he was implementing widespread reform to make positive changes in the Cleveland Police Department, to help better build relationships in the community, to help officers better relate to the community and interact with the community, and for officers to be held accountable. Again, like in Las Vegas, so many directives were unclear that officers were often not being reprimanded or held accountable because, again, essentially nobody knew what was going on. Another way that excessive force is being addressed is through the Center for American Progress, also known as CAP. CAP evaluated the practices of police departments across the nation and looked into areas such as policies, sentencing, use of force, and aggressive policing. CAP then presented the following 4 ideas to police departments nationwide. The first was to increase the use of special prosecutors in police misconduct investigations. So the problem here is that many police officers and prosecuting attorneys have a relationship in the community based on what each of their jobs are. The belief is that in many minority communities, the acquittal of police officers is an example of bias. Simply, these officers are being excused because of their relationship that they have with the prosecutors. So the use of a special prosecutor in these cases would eliminate that perceived bias, whether it's there or not. The second thing is to enhance the collection of data in deaths involving police officers. There is not a lot of clear data available immediately, and this leads to suspicion. Immediate data could provide beneficial information to both sides, either the police department who is saying, no, this is not true, and excessive force is not being used, or to the communities that are concerned and feel that excessive force is being used often and too much. The third thing would be to implement bias training for all police officers. What is bias training? Well, a lot of times, many people don't even realize they're being biased until it's pointed out to them. So these classes would essentially educate officers and give them a tool to start with so they can see the proper way. Now, it may seem like this shouldn't be something that should need to be taught to someone, and it shouldn't. But again, sometimes we do things without even realize we're doing them. Number 4 is to increase the government's oversight of police conduct. The government is not very involved in the day-to-day procedures of police departments, and they need more guidance on a proactive level to combat these excessive force issues. So, a few other things that I didn't talk about in my paper that I think would be great ideas is, of course, one being body cameras. Police officers wearing body cameras to show exactly what is going on while they are with suspects. And then the other is programs in some communities where the citizens can either ride along with the police or they can be put through mock situations so they know exactly what the police officers are dealing with. I think that a lot of these things that we spoke about in this presentation and the body cameras and the programs in different communities would do a lot to help stop the rise of excessive force complaints today. Thank you.